It's good to be here. Thanks, Greg, for the invitation. Always fun to be at the IIeX. I have the difficult task now to talk about programmatic sampling, but to also talk about what happened to us since we won the competition last year. So it's going to be interesting. Let's start where we come from. The basic idea of when we started was that there are billions of people around the world who have a smartphone in their pocket. You all know the story. The question is, how can we reach them to make them answer questions? So when we started, we were thinking of, hey, let's do an app. That's the most immediate thought that comes to mind. And we then scribbled down some numbers, looked at churn rates, looked at whether it's viable, looked at whether it's scalable, and after a few weeks realized, okay, this is for us a no-go. We wanted to reach as many people as possible globally, and it was just impossible to do that through an app from our perspective. So then, and we don't come from market research, and then we stumbled into something that turned out to be quite exciting, which is today called sometimes programmatic. Now, it's not the programmatic that you might know from the advertising industry. There's a different edge to it. There are about half a dozen companies who say they are in that space. I don't even know 100% whether we're in that space, but it gets a bit closer to that if you compare it to conventional sampling. So after we realized, okay, the app is a no-go, we said that there are doesn't go forward, that there are hundreds of thousands of apps and mobile websites out there, right? So why build an own app if we can just have this whole ecosystem at our disposal and buy essentially traffic volume from that ecosystem and then try to get people to answer questions?
Can you advance the slide?
Okay, so that's the word. So that was the idea, right? So we buy from everywhere and look at what's happening just to generate information, generate data. Can you go one further, please? Maybe the batteries, maybe the people before me click. So this was in our first office, and when we started this in a very naive way, we built our own little scripting tool and then said, hey, let's buy from a few countries. Volume and see who answers, what they answer, how this works, how much it costs, all these kinds of things, right? So this was, I think, when we first went live in Iran or Indonesia, there was a very exciting moment for us. We tested before that in the big markets, US, UK, and then found that, hey, you know, there's something, it works, we can produce answers, at least somehow. And then we raised a bit of money, not too much, and I said, hey, this is great, let's just see how far we can push it. And over the next half year or year, spend a few €100,000. It's not cheap to extend this to dozens of countries, 60, 70 countries, 80 countries. We're right now at almost 100 countries, and collect data from everywhere, profile people all over the place, anonymously, so we don't need to collect any email address, any name. Our idea was if we cut down the friction, make it as easy for people to answer questions, we can really scale this beyond a small group of people who are kind of always want to do surveys, but to get to more regular people. And then the next thing that happened was that we ran out of money and we had to find a business model. So we went to market research firms. So we said, okay, who could be interested in that? We didn't want to go to end clients. It was a bit daunting for us. So we went to market research firms in Germany and said, hey, we can do all these countries. We can collect information. And they said, yeah, this is amazing. This is really cool. So we need about 13 people who've been at a wedding in Shanghai and have eaten, this kind of chocolate. We're like, okay, that might be a bit tricky for us. Then they said we need people who live in Germany, who come from Indonesia, and who remit money to Indonesia regularly over the past half year, and a few other crazy things. And they said, oh, by the way, we have these 40-minute surveys. They don't look good. And we're like, okay, maybe we don't have a business model. So we So that was a kind of an interesting point. So we had to sit down. We said, okay, this is, it works, but we don't have a business model. So what do we do? And we said, we know that we can produce information. We know we can produce it, pretty much globally. We know we can produce it, very efficiently, and we also know it's great. It like what people answer really looks great. So what do we do now? So then we decided, okay, screw market research, at least in Germany, and let's just show what we can do with it. And then we started making up our own projects. Right? So we said, let's do one. We did this with MROps, a company that was bought by SSI. They said, okay, China is a big issue for us. And we said, okay, we can do it. And they were kind of skeptical, can they really do it? So we did like this huge demo project where we just collected tons of information from China, in this case about diabetes, one of the big killer diseases around the world. And there's very little data in China. So we did that. We did a few comparison studies where we said, okay, how's the regional spread? How are our demographics? What's our volume per countries? And then we did something that didn't have really a logic behind it, but we wanted to do it just because we could and because it's very difficult. We started to treat Europe as a country and said, okay, we can cover all these countries, and why don't we do it and pretend Europe is a country and see what people answer, more as kind of a test. So and then it became interesting because, and this is also why I'm here. Then getting into 2015, we were invited to pitch at the European version of this, which we won. And then we were invited to pitch to present at an ISOMA event our China diabetes project in Singapore. Got some good feedback. Dan, who's sitting there, came on board and said, this is great. I can help you guys find your way through the industry, how it works. And then only a few weeks, a month and a half later, we got a term sheet from one of the most reputed investors, VCs in Europe, Wellington Partners, and got some good funding to keep running, extended the team, got people from Google, Criteo, which is a big retargeting company in France, on board and really started building this. And then at the same time, we also started finding our way into the market. Not the German market research firms per se, but we then found US companies who were more interested in this, more open, who run multi-country studies. We started working with panels, kind of trying to get APIs in place to connect the two systems, to get volume to them, and to make that work. Now, this project turned out, it was an experiment, but that turned out to be a nice project for us as a team to be able to demonstrate what we can do. We have a couple of these projects now running. So this one, the European setup, it doesn't exist outside of the Eurobarometer. It's just a way to demonstrate what you can do when you programmatically access users all around the world through tens of thousands of different apps and websites. So one of our clients here, and this is the more exciting stuff, 70–80% of our business is other stuff. This is what I like more to talk about. They used this, for example, to last year in the whole crisis, refugee crisis, to understand how Europeans think about this, how they perceive this in different countries, and to better understand what's going on in Europe. And we've gotten, since then, we've ran it many times. We've gotten tremendous press coverage for this. Probably 20 million people have read about this kind of project. So this is, for us, a lot of fun. For the team, a lot of fun. So we just added 6 more people to the team. We now have 13 nationalities with us. And it's going really well. So coming back to programmatic, I don't know how many people know what it is. It's an easy idea. You automate the whole process of data collection, if you will. You automate the process of finding target groups, you automate the process of pricing, and you scale it tremendously across the world. And this is to some extent what we do. We do not programmatic buying, we do programmatic selling. The whole bidding system is not yet implemented fully. It's on our side implemented, but few of our partners can do this dynamically. It's very exciting. It's a tremendous potential for the research industry to scale. You know, we do almost 100 countries right now, very rapid data collection. But what is really important, and one point that I want to stress here, and one thing I like about the industry is that there's so much talk about innovation at conferences, and then when people go home, there's very little innovation. And when we talk about programmatic sampling, there's tremendous potential, and there are a few companies who take this very seriously and who've made great steps, and it's a wonderful thing. But it will never work if we try to get people to answer surveys like this. It just won't work, and there's no point, right? Why would you want to have tremendous reach? Why would you want to, you know, you want to make everything very efficient, but then you expect a large chunk of the population to do a 30, 40-minute survey that looks like this, and they just won't do it, right? So you can have all the innovation, you can have all the technology, as long as we don't know how to use it efficiently for data collection, the best technology won't give you anything. So we have to, in quantitative research, I think we have to rethink a bit how we interact with the user, how we collect data, and how we do things, and then these technologies can have a tremendous potential. That's it.
Guys, we are running very late in this track, so we just have time for 1 or 2 questions. Going once. How does Aquafresh come out in stripes? Come on, that was, here we go, we've got one.
Can you just quickly tell us?
We got the mic coming here.
Can you just quickly tell us what is, you said programmatic sample, it's not the same as programmatic media buying. What is it then?
If you just think about the automation of the process, that's kind of programmatic in the ad tech industry. The whole process of buying audiences for your ads, right? Now, in market research, the tricky thing is the audiences are so small, and the number of audiences, the number of people you need is also relatively small. So we're not talking about 100 or 1,000 people, 1 million people, we're talking about 1,000 or so. And this is tricky because what's required, it's kind of like what we need to do in the market research space is like what the ad tech industry does with 10 times the complexity, right? So if I click on a banner and then the DSP, you know, they know in real time who I am, kind of, and then attribute it to me, and then I can optimize it. Now that's not enough for what we need to do, what we want to do in market research if we want to scale this and make it efficient. And that this thing and the bidding and the pricing is so incredibly difficult to do because you then also have quotas to fill and all these kinds of things. And it's really what, I mean, in ad tech it's already complex. If we seriously would want to do it for market research, it's 10 times that. And I personally don't see it working in any other context than a bit what we do with our partners, where this is done through an API. But there are only a few companies who can do this on the demand side and a few companies on the supply side. So it's really like making the system more efficient among very few partners, right? Where you know exactly what they want, where you have high volumes. It's very difficult and very exciting.
Nico?
Did I answer your question, or kind of a bit? Well, the sample marketplace is part of it, right? I mean, sample marketplace is the automation of the sourcing. It's not necessarily the automation of the targeting, the automation of the bidding, of the price optimization. It's just for the client, the automation of the project management. This, you can call it programmatic or not, but this is already a huge step, you know, to what we have right now. You wouldn't, I mean, river sampling is, it's like, this would only make sense if you have kind of river sources. Why else would you do it? You have your profile email database that you send out. I mean, you don't need anything programmatic there. So it only makes sense if you have a huge, reach, and then buy and sell target groups automatically.
Nico, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.